Good morning. I'm BB Bodie with Families Helping Families of Greater New Orleans, and this is
Sharon Blackman, also Families Helping Families. I'm the outreach coordinator.
I'm the Director of Public Relations, and today we're going to be talking to you about strategies for successful toilet training. Every month we have a newsletter that goes out. It's a digital newsletter. It's called The Exceptional Times. And this past month, our February edition, we had an article about strategies for successful toilet training. And it was written by a wonderful occupational therapist at Crane Rehab, and her name's Rebecca Connick. And also Kate Barlow was another contributor to this article. It was very good. So we're hoping once we have our conversation, you'll go and we're going to give you a link to go to the Exceptional Times newsletter, and that you will go and you will read the article. Rebecca writes an article for us every month on different related topics, eating, sensory processing disorders, eating disorders for kids with disabilities. So we have a whole lineup in the magazine that is dedicated to individuals with disabilities, and there's tons of information and training in there. We put all of our webinars and all the training that we're going to have online, as well as the things that we do in person. So we started to have this discussion about the article, and we just felt like as parents it was really something that we wanted to share with y'all in your efforts to potty train your child. Potty training is hard enough when you have a child that doesn't have a disability, but when you have a child with a disability, it can be a little bit more rough. So both Sharon and I have children with a disability, and my son Seth has autism, and
My son Ernie also has autism and developmental delay, intellectual disability, and he doesn't talk. So he is mobile. He does walk, and he communicates in a lot of other ways, but he just doesn't talk with his mouth. I also have a 5-year-old who has some exceptionalities of her own. She is extremely articulate and extremely bright, and I thought I was going to lose my mind toilet training her. And actually, in all fairness, Ernie was probably easier to toilet train. And as we were talking about the article,
that's kind of true too, because Parker did have some issues that Seth didn't have. So
yeah, I mean, when Julia decided she was going to toilet train, she did it. And I think I may have pushed her a little bit early to do that. But with Ernie, we were laughing because when I read the article, I got to the part that says, in addition to physiological readiness, there are some other skills that a child needs to have in order for you to consider that it's time to toilet train. And some of the basic language, gross motor, fine motor, being able to fasten their clothes, pull their pants up and down, the trunk stability to be able to sit on the toilet and those things. And Ernie had none of that, none of it whatsoever, but he did have a tail. And also another little thing about Ernie, part of his disability is medical, and he has chronic diarrhea that's associated with short gut syndrome. He doesn't have as much small intestine as we do. He had a lot of that removed as an infant. So he has chronic diarrhea. He very rarely has a formed stool. And when he was a baby, he would have these blowout stools where I actually layered his bed so that when he would have a stool, if it went everywhere, I could just roll off a bed pad, and then I would have another layer there. That's how bad he was with pooping everywhere. And so
I guess toilet training probably seemed at that point like it was going to be a huge challenge.
Well, and I never honestly thought about toilet training at that point. But it occurred to me one day, and Ernie, he was about, I think he was close to 5. He was at least 4. And I realized that he had a tell. When he needed to poop, he would lay down wherever he was, on the floor, on the bed, wherever. He would lay down and put his feet up in the air. And we knew it was coming. And
well,
so
that's awesome, because then right there, he's telling you he needs to poop.
He's telling you, and he knows when he needs to poop. And so I decided I was going to get a potty chair. He wasn't even walking at the time. And so I decided I was going to get a potty chair and just see what happened. He had nursing care because he had a trach, he was on a ventilator, all these things, that should have precluded him from toilet training. And I just decided, you know what? I really don't want to deal with this diarrhea everywhere all the time. And so if he can hold it and if he knows when he's got to go, let's give it a try. And so I got a potty seat and I put it in his room. And when his nurses were there, if he displayed that behavior, we decided to sit him on the toilet. And within probably about 2 weeks, he was close to 100% of pooping on the potty seat or on the toilet. We pretty quickly
That is awesome.
We pretty quickly did away with the little potty seat because, in all honesty, his poops were just a little too much for that, and he was a little big for that because he was almost 5. And so we just got the little insert for the toilet, and we would sit him on the toilet when he needed to go. Now, he wasn't on the ventilator all the time either, so it was easier to get into the bathroom with him because he was off the vent. But we would sit him on the toilet, and it took us probably a couple of years to get him 100% with urine, but with feces, he was quick. He was quick to learn that if he did that, he did not have to go on himself. And
So those are telltale signs that he was showing that he knew when he had to go, and that this is the behavior that he displayed when he had to go. And of course, we all know behavior is everything that we do. It doesn't mean that it's something good. It doesn't mean that it's something bad. It's just everything that we do is our behavior. And he showed this behavior, and Sharon said, this is what's going on at this point in time. So we are going to try and potty train him. So the point of bringing this up is we want to let you all know that it might take a little longer to potty train a child that has a disability, especially with, someone who has more complex needs or special health care needs. But it can be possible. Mm-hmm. It can be possible. And Sharon's here to tell you firsthand that it was with Ernie. And with him, it was better with number 2 than it was with tinkling. So to me, that's even better because poop.
That's usually the hardest.
Yeah, poop is usually the hardest.
Thing, yeah.
For us, it was a little different. The way Seth did things, he was trying to mimic his dad, but that wasn't gonna happen. It wasn't gonna happen. He couldn't reach. He couldn't. At first, he kind of didn't know when he needed to go. So when we sat him on the potty for his poops, and we would give him a newspaper, we'd give him a book, we'd give him his toothbrush. We have some really cute pictures, and we really should have brought the pictures for y'all to see.
But our kids are 20 and 24 right now. I'm not sure they would appreciate it.
I'm not sure that they would appreciate it now because they're older. And 2, we're coming to you as older and more experienced parents, so you can understand that this is something that can happen for your family, and don't get discouraged. But so we decided that when we were going to move him up from, he was sitting on the pot and was watching his dad. So then you would try to start on the little potty like that, and then you would just have pee everywhere because that's not going to happen. So he was kind of afraid of the big toilet at first, the flush of the big toilet. He would run out the bathroom. It was a sensory thing. So we basically just kind of sat him closer and closer to the bathroom as we flushed the toilet, so he would kind of get more used to it and more used to it, more used to it. And I mean, y'all might think this is gross, but I'm gonna say it. I used to sit him on my lap when I was on the toilet, so he could just get used to sitting on the toilet and not be afraid of sitting on such this big ginormous toilet. Because to him it was ginormous, and it was a scary thing because when it flushed, he was afraid.
And you don't know what perceptions your kids are going to have of the toilet.
Absolutely.
The water goes around and around, and then it disappears. Is it going to suck you down with it?
That too.
Especially if you're out in public and it's one of those big commercial toilets that makes horrific sounds.
It's scary to me.
I wonder if they're going to suck me down sometime.
But truth. So when we did get him used to just the sound of and not freaking out when it flushed. We started to put him on the big toilet backwards. So just like a man would stand up in front of the toilet, we'd sat him on the toilet backwards. And he would peep in the potty that way. And then eventually we brought his legs down. And, we'd give him tinkle targets. He'd love to tinkle target at the Cheerios and all those kinds of fun things, And we actually would really have a potty parade when we were successful, literally. And it was something that he just completely and totally loved. On the shoulders, if dad was home, we'd save Mardi Gras beads and throw them around the house. I mean, seriously, we had a little tinkle potty parade at our house in celebration of him doing it. And he loved it, and it just made him want to go even more because it was going to be a part for him.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, Ernie still does everything sitting down on the toilet, and it's not the end of the world if your child is not, if your little boy or your young man can't stand in front of the toilet. If they can't stand, I mean, they may not be able to stand.
Absolutely.
If they can't do that, if they need to sit on the toilet, if they need help transferring to the toilet, I think that, and I tell my husband this every once in a while when Ernie's having a bout with some exceptional, diarrhea. I tell him I'm so thankful that 15 years ago we decided to potty train him because I have a 20-year-old man now, and still with chronic diarrhea, and that would be a mess.
Yeah.
And besides our feelings about the toilet training, it was important to him.
Mm-hmm.
If he had to go through middle school and high school being diapered, that would have been. Now, some people, that's just the way it is. It's the way it's going to have to be. But
Absolutely.
For him, he really was aware enough and could be taught enough to go on the toilet, and so I feel like it increased a little bit of his dignity. Being able to do that, even if sometimes he has accidents and doesn't quite make it, or he, blows off the back of the toilet, that kind of thing. It's still on the toilet, and for him that really provided a lot more dignity for his hygiene than it would have otherwise. And I'm really thankful that we were able to do that. I think probably what I would like to to instill in families and parents is give it a try. Give it a try. Even if you have a bigger kid, school age or even teen or whatever, if you think it's possible, even if you have to transfer them to the toilet if they're not able to stand, if you think that they could develop that skill, I think it's really important for their dignity, for their self-esteem, to be able to do that rather than to have to be diapered. Give it a shot. Ernie was little, and we were able to just sit him on the toilet, but we had to sit there next to him too because he wasn't able at that point to hold himself on, and I wasn't sure he wouldn't fall off, and so we would have to sit on the side of the tub and wait for him. But it really was worth doing all that, especially now.
And of course, we're not saying that if your child's not potty trained, you're a failure or
No,
anything like that, because there are circumstances that are sometimes beyond what we can do. But we're just trying to give you like some hints from different aspects. Seth's mobile. Ernie, has his upper body medical issues that that prevents him from like maybe transferring himself at times or whatever it may be. But for children that have a little bit more, or children or adults that have a little bit more complex needs, if you can tell when they need to go and they are showing you signs, showing you those behaviors, we know it's not, especially if they're older, we know it's not going to be an easy road. It's going to take time, and it's going to take, especially if you have to transfer them. Mm-hmm. There are devices out there that are covered through waiver services, Medicaid, that can help with the transferring from the toilet to the wheelchair. But there are things that are available, and if you're unsure about those things, you can always give Sharon or I a call. If it's a child with autism, if it's a child that has significant special health care needs or something like that, Sharon really she's been there, honey, and she's done that, and she sounds like a doctor to me. I'm like, when she starts talking, I'm like, girl, you missed your call, and you should have been a doctor. I mean, she knows it all when it comes to every single thing about Ernie and every inky little bit of what is needed for him, and it's amazing to me.
Well, I was going to add that one of the things, just a low-tech device that we used, and honestly we still do use, for Ernie, when he first started to go to the toilet, he wouldn't be able to get on by himself because he was just too little, to sit on the toilet. I got one of those little doorbells.
Uh-huh.
It's just a little the little $10 doorbell that you buy at Walmart.
You put the battery in it,
and you put the battery in it, and then it has a separate wireless bell that actually rings. You can put that anywhere in the house. And I Velcroed the doorbell itself down low on the frame of the door to the bathroom.
So like one
And
of those nurse call buttons.
Yes, and so
Absolutely.
I taught Ernie
Creative.
when he had to go to the potty. Every time he went, we would
Love
ring
it.
the doorbell, and I had it, where I could hear it. And if I heard that bell ring, I had to jump up and run because he was ready to go to the toilet, and he would be standing there next to the tub waiting for me, to put him on the toilet. Now we have one of those little dingers that you see, like on old TV shows at the hotel counter, the little dinger. We have one of those, and we set it on the side of the bathtub.
That's a good idea.
And so, because he can go by himself, but if
So
he
he
needs to
has
be
his
clean, he needs
independence.
help. Yeah.
He has his independence, and when he needs help, he has the bell to ring. That's awesome.
It's pretty low tech, but it really worked for us. And also, if you have a child who
We don't need to be high tech.
No,
We
no,
figured
no.
it out, honey.
the lower tech, the better for some of us. But even if you have a child who stays in the bed a lot, or who is not able to propel their own wheelchair, those bells are awesome. If they can touch the bell, it'll ring, and they can summon you from anywhere in the house, which it really kind of it freed us up because I didn't have to be listening for him and watching him all the time to make sure he
Absolutely.
needed to get on the toilet.
And it gave him the self-esteem of being able to do it on his own.
Now, sometimes if he wants something, he'll go ring his bell.
Well, hey,
just to,
he gave
just to
me a
psych
bell.
us out,
Keep
It's
ringing
like,
it dang
Mom, he can't call me, but he can certainly go in the bathroom and ring his bell.
I love me some Ernie. I love me some Ernie. But the poopy training for our on our end was a little bit more complicated. Seth would withhold, and we kind of were worried about that. Initially when he was a baby, he had all the gut problems that a lot of kids with autism have. Either the constipation or the diarrhea. It was always something, one or the other. And I guess when it got to the point when he got older, I guess he was fully potty trained at 5'2". I mean, it took time. And who's to say that we have to put an age limit on it? We don't. We don't have to put an age limit on it. Nor do we want to stress you out either and think that, oh my God, I have to do this now. But these are just suggestions to help you. And but he did not like using the bathroom to go to do number 2 anywhere but home. That was it. So he would withhold if he had to go at school. And when he came home, he started basically kind of like just trained himself that this is the time I'm going to go. And, scheduled it in. Scheduled his bowel movements and his life the way it made him comfortable. So initially there was concern, and we were consulting a doctor about it because we did want to make sure that there was no medical issues. We wanted to make sure that he wasn't getting impacted with stool, because that was an issue when he was younger with the diarrhea and the constipation issue. It was terrible. The gut issues were terrible. Yeah. And, that's another thing that wound up taking us, a little longer to get that portion of it done than, but let's face it, I don't like going anywhere but where I'm comfortable, and I want to be at home when I have to go. Of course, that's not always the case, but at least he can now if we're out. And getting him to clean himself was a little bit more of a challenge because of his motor skills. His motor skills weren't all that great, and to reach around and wipe himself wasn't always the easiest thing for him, and that took quite a lot longer than 5 years old.
And Ernie still doesn't do that.
Yeah, but he has mastered it. He has finally mastered it. It has taken years, and of course, he's got to have his glove. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, he's got to have his glove.
Can I teach my 5-year-old to do that?
Yeah, it's like, yay. But he does. He has his glove, and he still likes, he has to use wipes. He doesn't like to use the toilet paper, but he uses the wipes, and we have, everything readily and available for him so he can be as independent as possible. Mm-hmm. So another thing, an important part of what the article states is it's important to monitor your child for any potential medical problems. You want to make sure that there isn't a medical problem there that is causing any of the issues. It could be a urinary tract infection. It could be they can be impacted. There are children that you really have to monitor their bowel movements, keep a bowel schedule. That's another thing we did for a very long time too, because we were so afraid of him withholding that we wanted to make sure
somebody was with him and he knew he went. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I was like a crazy woman because of all the things you hear about, the kids becoming impacted, and it can become very
painful,
and very, very dangerous for them. So basically, I think you're going to get a lot out of the article that we didn't touch on, but we hope we touched on some things for you guys as parents of children with disabilities. And look who's calling. It's my husband. So we're going to go, and we'll be back with some other interesting topics that we hope that we can help as moms, as parents, as older parents who have been through a lot. A lot. So
a lot of water under our bridge.
Yes, a lot of things to celebrate, a lot of good
Absolutely.
times, and we want to concentrate on those. We want to concentrate on the victories,
and we want to be encouraging to all of you.
Absolutely, because
our lives are. I mean, of course, we all have our challenges, and potty training was certainly one of those for both of my kids.
Absolutely.
But life is good. Our kids are relatively healthy, and so we just want to encourage you to make the absolute most out of it. Enjoy your kids. Encourage them to be the best they can be.
Absolutely. And if you need us and you want to talk about any of this, please give us a call at 504-888-9111. We have an 800 number, but I don't have it memorized, so I'm going to put that in. I'm going to put the telephone number where you can call us, and I'm going to put the 800 number in there as well as the link to the Exceptional Times newsletter that we're discussing. And we definitely want to thank Rebecca Connick. Rebecca Connick has written some awesome articles, and I'm going to tell you, each one that I read is like going back in time and saying, oh, geez, I wish I would have had this information back then. So I encourage you to read Exceptional Times, and to read her articles as well, because they're very, very educational to parents like us who need the extra support. So thanks.
Thank you.